All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first general election student-in-chief debate. We're going to let the candidates introduce themselves to you, starting with Riley.
Hi, my name is Riley Ranzau, and I'm running for student-in-chief. My current focuses are preserving the rights of the people, stopping the rise of unemployment rates, and guiding America through this difficult time with reason and foresight. As student-in-chief, I will lead and make decisions with the best interest of the American people in mind.
Thank you, Riley. Let's hear from Chelsea.
Hi, my name is Chelsea John, and I'm also running for student-in-chief. I want to focus on standing up for people who feel voiceless on things and shaping a better America in the future.
Thank you, Chelsea. Let's hear from Bodie.
Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm running on a platform to strengthen both America and the American people. We will reform education so that it benefits everyone and leads to a rise of a stronger American citizen. We will strengthen the military to keep America great, and we will promote traditional family values to keep America wholesome and pure. I hope by the end of this debate you'll understand why you'll be glad you voted for SAD.
All right, thank you, candidates. Our first question goes back to Bodie. Considering the rights of states and federalism and the national economy, what should the next steps be for our country to fight the spread of COVID-19?
Well, a lot of the problem from COVID-19 comes from people who simply don't understand the severity of it. If you go onto social media, you'll see people blatantly disregarding the social distancing policies. They'll still go to parties, they'll still interact with people very closely, and they will continue to spread the disease. If everyone in America had done as they should have done, stayed in quarantine, locked themselves up, had a nice time inside their home, we wouldn't have the 300,000 cases we do right now and rising. We need to make sure the American citizen, first and foremost, understands the severity. And if we can't convince it to the people why this is a serious disease they need to take seriously, then we need to break up these parties and everything that continues to spread it. I'm not talking authoritarian measures. I'm just saying maybe have a police officer on the beach to make sure no one's getting too close to each other. Unraw, you're muted right now.
Yep. All right, we'll go to Chelsea for a response to that real quick.
I believe that it is time that the United States does a 2-week mandatory shutdown because the cases and the spreading is not getting any lower. In fact, they just continue to go up. Nobody is following the stay-at-home order, even in our county ourselves. Non-essential businesses have already shut down, and thousands and thousands have lost their jobs or are currently laid off until all this is over. So the faster we can get a hold of this situation and put everything on hold and get people home and safe where the disease can't spread and make sure we're flattening the curve, the faster American can get back up and running again.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. Let's go to Riley for your response.
Yeah, I think a more targeted approach to coronavirus could work better. Just having the elderly and immunocompromised people stay at home because people are really suffering right now from unemployment and not having jobs. So if we let the people who can fight the virus go out and work and build herd immunity, eventually, I think that'll be better long term.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Bodie here for a second. This was actually our topic about a month ago for our debate, and it's interesting to see some of your responses have changed a little bit. Why the change in policy from some of you? Going back to Bodie.
So my policy back before, America had maybe a few hundred cases, not a few 100,000. So shutting down travel and limiting ourselves may have worked better. We could actually individually contain the virus and keep the spread limited. Now, obviously, that's no longer possible, so we need to adapt the strategy to what makes the most sense for America. We need to be pragmatic, not idealistic here.
Has anybody else's stance changed since earlier this month? Riley, Chelsea?
My initial stance was mainly focusing on getting the vaccine. And I think right now it's pretty much the same. We just want to limit the amount of people that are elderly or immunocompromised who get the coronavirus before we can get the vaccine.
My initial response was saying that the tests need to be widely available throughout. And I still believe that is a thing that needs to be happening because the tests still aren't widely available everywhere. And there could be many people who don't have it or don't know that they have it and are still going out, and it's very spreadable. And so along with the shutdown, I believe that tests need to be mandatory and everywhere.
All right, thanks, guys. We're going to go ahead and move on to our second question. This goes to Riley. Did Congress go too far or not far enough with their $2 trillion stimulus bill, which is sending money directly to families next month? Riley?
I think it did go a little too far. I think they're trying to find a really short-term solution to a big problem. And I like some of the stuff like prolonged unemployment benefits for people who are out of work for a long time. But some of the stuff like giving extra money to Social Security, people on Social Security, when they're not really impacted financially by the coronavirus. And then I just think a better solution would be allowing people who are healthy and can resist the coronavirus to go out and work. So then they can get money and spend money at businesses. I am glad if we're going to spend money, they gave a lot to small businesses. I think it was 367 billion. And I think that's important because small businesses employ about half of the private sector workforce. So I thought that was good.
Let's go to Chelsea for your response.
I believe that the stimulus was necessary because our country is struggling very hard right now, especially our economy in times like this. And like I said earlier, many people are laid off or fired and they still have necessary bills they have to pay. And a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, not a lot, but people do live paycheck to paycheck. And there's no way they could have known like in advance that this was going to be as big as a problem as it was. There's no way they could have prepared for this and they don't have money. And so I do believe that it's a good thing that we are getting money out of this, but it also raises questions all over the country. Like, where's all this money coming from? So that's going to be a big debate in the future. I feel like people are going to be like, where did all that money come from?
Okay, Bodie, let's go to you for your response.
I actually support the stimulus package. I believe that supporting Americans in this desperate time makes a lot of sense. What I want to know, however, the average citizen is expected to save, like, let's say 6 weeks for an emergency fund. But these big corporate businesses that for the second time in a decade we're having to bail out after 3 weeks of a struggling economy are on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm looking at the stimulus package. It says that we're giving $50 billion to passenger airlines, $8 billion for cargo. Why can't they take the fund? And why aren't we giving more money back to the Americans? I say the stimulus package is good, but it's misdirected. More should be going towards Americans and less to big corporations that should be able to survive this.
So I'll open this up to anybody. So the question was, did it go too far or not far enough? Does there need to be another, like a phase 4? I know Trump has talked about a phase 4. What should that phase 4 look like? Anybody?
I think if there was a phase 4, like Bodie said, the stimulus package is also going to those big corporations and not like towards the American people. I think they should focus more on the people who are struggling with this and not the big corporations.
Anybody else? You know, I would say that this has been one of the biggest spending packages we've seen since the 1930s. It's interesting that we do have a Republican president and a Republican Senate that has passed this. It's kind of unique, and we'll kind of see where this goes from here. We're gonna go to our third question, and this goes to Chelsea. You get the first answer on this one. Talking about education. Right now, we're doing virtual online learning for the foreseeable future. And who knows how long this is going to last, even into possibly next year. How should we change the educational system in the United States to best serve the jobs of the future and the increase of automation. And you could also talk about virtual learning if you want to.
Okay, so experts at pewresearch.org expect that jobs currently performed by humans will be performed by robots in the near future. At the same time, new jobs will come up as technology advances, but that means with these impending changes, the school curriculum needs to change as well. Schools need to better prepare students to remain competitive in the labor workforce. And post-secondary institutions also have to provide students with valuable education and maybe some retraining options for workers who no longer have jobs because of the loss. There needs to be mandatory classes put into place for students to learn how to handle new machinery and new technology as they come available. And the school systems also need to shift their focus onto critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and teamwork, because that'll allow students to remain competitive while searching for jobs. PewResearch.org also stated that types of jobs that are at least risk for being replaced by automation involve problem solving, teamwork, critical thinking, communication, and creativity. And that is because robots and artificial intelligence and machinery does not have the functioning that our brains do when it comes to stuff like that. So if we work more on those things in the school curriculum, that'll help students get a leg up and be more competitive while trying to find jobs in the future.
All right, good. Let's go to Bodie for your response.
Yes. So my father is an assistant principal at Wichita West High School. So just hearing about his experiences with a lot of students, now granted, he tends to deal with the bad ones, the ones that end up in his office for some reason or another. But hearing from his experience, a lot of kids just have such apathy towards school. They don't care about any part of it. They don't see any value in it. They don't see any use in it. And that's what they're going to remember out of their high school is that, no, it wasn't that important. It doesn't really matter. So when they try and go into the workforce with the attitude of this doesn't really matter, it's not a huge deal, and without proper education skills, they wonder why they can't find a job and why they're struggling. We need to reform education on a more structural level to make it apparent to the student why all of this matters, why they need to have a good work ethic, why they need to apply themselves, and yes, maybe prepare them more for specific career paths, but also no matter what career they choose, just make them more determined, more passionate about it, and make them, better students, better workers, better citizens, better Americans.
All right, thank you, Bodie. Let's go to Riley.
Yeah, I think with the increase in automation and everything, it's more important than ever to be teaching students like life skills. I know we're getting a financial literacy class soon, and I think that's very important. And just teaching kids stuff like communication, collaboration, and with technology now it's easier to do like creative projects. And I think technology can be used as a supplement. But I think being online right now kind of shows, although like it's working well, for the most part, I think it shows the value of hands-on learning and in-person learning too.
I will say, I want to go this direction with this. You think about what this virus has done to essential jobs. What has it shown us about jobs that we really need in times of crisis? And how does that relate to our education?
Well, it shows what we can live and what we cannot live without for a few months to an indefinite period of time. We know, okay, we need this industry in order to survive, or we need to, at least if we shut them down, the big government people say, okay, we got to give them a bit of money so they don't bankrupt while they're shut down. We're figuring out what jobs could be done remotely, practically, because every single company in the world has to set up a Zoom account now. And it's just a good stress test to see what can we do in a crisis and how can we overcome this.
So I'll go to Chelsea on this. You think about the offerings that we have at Valley for different classes. What has this crisis told us about the classes and which classes have prepared us for jobs in a crisis?
I think right now, like CNA is a big class that has definitely prepared students for a crisis like this, because I know like kids who have their CNA are actually able to work right now and they're making jobs. I mean, they're making money and they're maintaining jobs. But really the only other jobs that are open are doctors and hospitals and also like supermarkets, and nothing that we take really at Valley would give us stuff to be ready to go work at Walmart because there's no how to be a cashier, how to stock the shelves. So really CNA is a big class that would have prepared students for this.
Riley, anything else to add?
Yeah, I agree with the CNA class. Yeah, because that helps get the certificate for a job. And you can see right now people like skilled workers, especially healthcare, that's the kind of jobs we have right now.
At this time, I do want to open it up to some back and forth between our candidates on topics that you want to express to the voting teachers. So we'll start with Bodie. Go back to you and bring up a topic that you are concerned about that you want to make sure the teachers know about.
All right. We'll stick with pro-military. I think that's a good one to start off on. America is currently objectively the most powerful military in the world, and it's my belief that we should be able to maintain that and that we should be able to keep that up for our own benefit. Like it or not, as the most powerful country in the world, we need a powerful military in order to defend our interests abroad. You don't maintain the status as most powerful country in the world through strictly diplomacy. Sometimes the decisive action is needed, and that decisive action is best coming out of a gun.
So decisive action as in even more funding for the military?
Maybe not necessarily more funding, but just keep maintaining the funding we have and potentially encouraging our allies to keep funding further. America does take on more costs than the rest of our allies. Have you heard of that F-35 fighter? It's supposed to be like the hot new fighter aircraft, next generation, change the world, right? It's cost us a lot of money in order to design that, if I can find the exact amount. Yeah, like $400 billion to develop this new next generation fighter aircraft. And as the developer of this, we're paying all that production cost, and other countries or allies who purchase it will never need to pay that back, so they can strengthen their own military in exchange.
Any comments from Riley or Chelsea on a military being priority?
Do you ever think that how much we spend on our military is too much? Because we're already in debt and we spend our majority of our money on our military, and that just keeps going up, especially with creating new things like that fighter jet. Do you ever think there's a time that we should just be like, wait, maybe we could spend this money somewhere else? Times like this.
Well, in times like in a crisis, yes, I can understand that. In general, while I understand your concern, without a strong military, America could lose a lot of the statuses it takes for granted. And I believe that on a true grand global scale, that is so highly important, we might not give it up. While I agree we can potentially stop increasing exponentially our military spending, I still believe it needs to be a strong focus of America, at the very least until our allies pick up the slack.
Go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, last debate I talked about Ronald Reagan and his peace through strength. I do think a strong military is very important, and I also believe in diplomacy. But like I said, if that doesn't work, a strong military to back us up, I think, is necessary.
All right, let's go to Chelsea now. You have a chance to speak about something that we haven't talked about that is important to you.
So, one thing that I put on my campaign that my campaign, me and my people felt that was needed was body cameras for police officers. And we really like the idea of that because it just helps everyone involved, like police officers and like the people getting arrested, because some people are scared of police officers, and people even warn their kids and be like, hey, if you see a police officer, you just put your hands up, you know. And police officers are also scared to do their jobs because they know people are scared of them. They don't know what people will do out of fear. So the body cameras will just help everyone in that party to stay on their best behavior. We also talked to Officer Manning about this, which is seen in my campaign video, and he said absolutely he believes that every police officer should have to wear a body camera, because what are you hiding?
Let's go ahead and go to Bodie. Speaking of the campaign video, thank you for that segue. Bodie, do you have anything to say to Chelsea regarding her campaign video?
Well, I raised the concern that her campaign video was over time. And as far as I can tell, that concern has been addressed. You'll release a shortened video that fits within the limits, and that situation has been addressed. As long as there's nothing else to say on the matter, I'm not sure how it slipped through in the first place. That's a question for the reporters to investigate. But I'm glad the situation has been resolved and we all have complying videos with FCC regulation.
We can go back to Chelsea on this. Anything to say on that scandal?
Bodie, one thing that I don't understand that slipped through was the fact that you initially did not win your class, yet somehow you are still here debating with us. So I feel like that's more of a scandal than my video being too long, and we are fixing that. And I wasn't the one who made my video, not to put the blame on someone else, but that was my vice president. So I didn't know it was too long before she turned it in.
Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room there, Bodie. What are you doing in this election?
Well, the person who did win my class election was Gavin, right? Gavin ended up dropping out entirely of the race. He wanted to focus on, well, actually, ironically enough, I think he wanted to focus on track, but that's unfortunately no longer a thing. Or he wanted to do something else. He didn't really care about the rest of the election. Unrad, do you remember? I can't remember what he specifically dropped out for.
He's baseball. So
baseball, that's what it was, yeah. But there's not much of a baseball season. The point being, he dropped out. My class still needed a runner-up, and I was willing to run under an independent platform, try to secure that third-party vote. I still got the second most number of votes in that class, and I think I need to double check to confirm, but I think I got the most votes out of anyone who didn't actually end up going on to be one of you two.
Okay, fair enough. We'll go ahead and go to Riley to talk about an important issue for your campaign.
Yeah, one of mine was the drug problem in America, the war on drugs. And we came up with a plan to first not decriminalize drugs, obviously, but we want to shorten the sentences for minor drug offenses like possessions of marijuana and stuff like that. We don't want to not make them go to jail or prison, but we want to make that time less, and then we want to focus on more rehab because there's a stat that 65% of people like drug offenses who go to jail, they have an active drug abuse disorder. And so if you put them in jail, nothing's going to get better. So if we focus on rehab, we hope to make them effective members of society, and it saves money that would be going towards feeding them and having them in jail. It saves more money doing rehab.
All right, any comments from either of you?
That's a really good point, Riley. I really like that statistic and that focus on it, because that is, it shows that you want people to get better instead of just putting them in jail. So that was a good take on it.
I've heard the term revolving door prison thrown around a little bit. And yeah, I have to agree. If we can stop people from coming back in prison, just stop the problem once and done, then that would make life for a lot of people a lot better.
All right. At this time, I'm going to open it up for anything that you'd like to say, or we'll go to our closing statements. Does anybody have anything to add before we end the debate today? If not, we'll go with our closing statements, and we'll start with Riley.
All right. Right now, we are facing unprecedented times in America, and right now, we need leaders who have integrity, have practical solutions to our nation's problems, and put American people first in this time of hardship. Decisions made now will forever impact generations to come. A vote for me as student-in-chief is a vote for America's future.
All right. Thank you, Riley. Let's go to Bodie.
My fellow Americans, this election is one of the most critical in our history. Our country is in the midst of a crisis, and how you vote in this election could decide our fate. We need strong, radical leadership, not afraid to take any steps necessary to ensure the safety of Americans and the survival of our freedoms. I hope now that you've watched this debate, you'll know why you'll be glad you voted for SAD.
Thank you, Bodie. Let's go to Chelsea.
In this time, more than any other time in history, we need a leader who cares about people's benefits, someone who cares about America as a whole instead of just running it like a business. And I believe in the goodness of people, and I think it's time for someone to stand up for the voices on things that will be beneficial for a future America, instead of those who just worry about our economy. So, if you want a person who cares about the people, cares about the benefits, and wants to shape America in the best way possible, vote for me.